a bitch. I fuck it up, I do this shit, you say that I'm a slut, it ain't your business who I'm fucking with. It's the dude with fuckery bitches and they say that he's the man, but I get it, and with twins she's a whore. That's what they say. It's time to take the word back. Slut is now a compliment, a sexy ass female who running shit and confident. Lyrically don't fuck with me, the greatest in the world, living on my pussy, all my ladies let me hear you. I'm a CEO, dream girl, drug dealer. Real just like my titties, you could even cop a feel up. Finger looking good, treat my pussy like a meal up. Talk about my tit size, I need to see your dick size. Show me what you're working with. I better win a big prize. Our advocacy is a 7-minute performance, a sum of stories, statistics, and songs. A 7-minute plain text called the PMC. Yo, that's too nasty. Why your mouth so vulgar? Why? Why you gotta sing all those nasty records and all that? But I represented the ladies and we got something to say. We've been quiet too long, lady. Life very patient. That's all I'm saying. The first argument is in 1992, Dr. Dre released a song called Bitches Ain't Shit, reducing women to horse and tricks. The second argument, the history of hip-hop is essentially male-dominated. Every turn it excludes the female voice, not only actively excluding women from the space, but making it a hostile to the female voice. The genre that it served from the degradation of the female body. Women were seen as objects and sex symbols. Beginning in the 1990s, women began the hip-hop feminist movement to investigate the intersection of race, culture, sex, and class within the space. Hip-hop transformed these space into a place to divide gender norms and reclaim a culture that had historically been oppressive. The next argument is music historically is used as an avenue of liberation. Look to the 1960s in Woodstock to protest the wars. Additionally, look to the rap music that's happening with the rebels in Libya, or the New Orleans jazz movement took contemporary white music and spun it in order to encompass the culture that they wanted to. The third argument is that we believe that debate mirrors this hip-hop space. Thus, confronting gender and sexism through hip-hop is key. The little A, the designated speech time, means that you have to listen to me for 7 minutes. The fact that you are forced to listen to what I have to say, the fact that the critics are forced to listen to what I have to say, or else you can't evaluate and they can't respond with any kind of an argument. The fact that your arguments against us means that you are forced to engage rather than zoning out like you would in any kind of a forum. You are forced to confront the other side of the arguments rather than some kind of raw mentality and forces that we get to develop this argument and develop these kinds of issues. The fourth argument is that hip-hop feminism is able to solve the fact that I can use vulgarities and I will talk about my pussy and you have to listen to me. I can occupy the space in the exact same way that some man has told me that I melt in his mouth, not in his hand. Is an indication of why I get to use it. Spelman College is empirical proof of this. The indication that Spelman College has a hip-hop feminism class, and when Nelly wanted to come to the school, they said, you have to meet with us to talk about your rhetoric, and Nelly never showed up. The next argument is the national debate space, and you can see the little A, this is not a regional tournament, this is the tournament of excellence. Now, people talk about the fact that Townsend won seed, I know it talks about who won the UTD, is an indication of why this is uniquely key. The next argument is that winning at this tournament is key because it proves that these kinds of arguments have a space at tournaments. The next argument is that this space uniquely excludes women, where there's a 55-45 ratio in novice debate, where there are more women within that space, but once you get to open debate, that drastically decreases. Once you get to the national circuit, there are less than 50% of teams even have a woman on them that are able to break. Good question.
Yeah. Who are the lyrics that you perform? Who are they from?
The first one is Brooke Candy. The second one is Miss Elliott. I'm about to give you some song. I can't do nothing, girl, without somebody bugging. I used to think that it was me, but now I see it wasn't. They told me to change, they call me names, and so I popped one. Opinions are like assholes, and everybody's got one. How many times? How many rules am I to break before you understand that your double standards don't mean shit to me? The thesis. This uniquely pushes the hip-hop space in order to get their voices heard. At first, pioneers in feminist hip-hop were accused of being vulgar for trying to get their voices heard, such as Miss Elliott in a male-dominated society. What was once considered inappropriate has now evolved into a movement. In many ways, there are parallels to the debate space, and we seek to break down and rupture these norms. Boys, sit the fuck down, listen to the ladies speak. The first argument is women-on-women violence. We compete with each other in order to be the best biddy. That means that we use gossip or rumors or blaring or slut-shaming in order to identify ourselves as the alpha female. The fact that you're the best female is the kind of compliment that a woman gets, rather than you're the best debater is an indication of how we are always competing against each other. The fact that how you dress or who you have slept with or whether the person you slept with is a national champion or not indicates your personal value, is an indication of how we are constantly to be within this space. The fact that female critics are responsible for the biggest speaker point differential between male and female debaters is an indication that women and women violence is always going to make sexism inevitable. The next argument is that it pushes women out of the community where we feel like we can't have competitive success. The next argument is that there are no fleet-of-all leadership. The fact that less than one-fifth of all dogs are females is an indication that we don't have role models. We don't have someone to look up to. The next impact is masking. The current way that we address this is always creating masking, that we want to identify one thing as the problem, because that is easier to identify than looking within ourselves at what the actual problems might be. That means that when we post something on the wall outside, our good deed is done for the day, and it doesn't matter if we go to a party and do something uniquely dehumanizing to a woman, because we've already accomplished it. It's an indication that there is never going to be solvency for this issue. The problem uniquely gets worse. It always means that you have no self-reflection, and we choose to create scapegoats as the problem, because pushing it somewhere else that is not within ourselves is always easier, and those people get pushed out of the community. third impact is the white man's savior, that the accounting for sexism debate has become a trendy argument, that whether you're posting something on Facebook or whether you read some kind of a femme criticism and indication that you are cool and you know what's going on in the community. That is uniquely bad for a couple of reasons. The first one is that it's appropriation of female voices, that someone gets to identify what my problems are in this debate space and they haven't experienced my problems. The second argument is that it means that there's no agency for a woman, that I don't get to speak up about my issues. I have to go find some white man or some man who has credibility in this community in order to tell people what my issues are. It means that I don't actually get to express my own opinions. Additionally, it means that women are uniquely kicked out of the space, that I post something on Facebook about sexual harassment or sexual assault or some narrative that I experienced and some man gets to comment on it and tell me that I need to read the literature is an indication of why women are uniquely pushed out of this space as men get to dominate it.
Too often than everything I said.
I'm sorry, what?
Too often than everything you said.
Okay, thank you.
The first off might take more speech. The second one doesn't. It's kind of like a critiquing of this ad. At the beginning, there will also be a performance that you definitely perform. You've taken my blues and gone. You sing them on Broadway, you sing them at Hollywood Bowl. You mix them up with symphonies, and you fix them so they don't sound like me. Yep, you done taken my blues and gone. You also took my spirituals and gone. You put me in Macbeth, and Carmen Jones, and all kinds of swing mikados, and in everything but what's about me. But someday, somebody will stand up and talk about me, and write about me, black and beautiful, and sing about me, and put on plays about me. I reckon it'll be me, myself. Yes, it'll be me. Criticism is appropriation. Links. The first is the use of non-white art forms. You assume a right to historically black performances for your own purposes. This commodifies the otherness of hip-hop and a racist blackness outside of your narrative. You have subverted an entire genre of music to your own purposes to talk about the problems with females in debate. And the problem is that form of art is uniquely tied to the black community. Is not something that can be appropriated to illustrate uses of another instance of otherization. The second link is the contact with the other only when it is useful. Hip-hop is only valuable insofar as it makes your experiences as white women valuable. Look at the fact that all the instances of rap that you choose to validate your criticism are those that are uttered by women. Your contact with the other is explicitly subjugated to the idea that we should focus on gender rather than the race issues that created hip-hop in the first place as a movement. The third argument is the evaluation of hip-hop. Your suggestion that hip-hop mirrors debate is a judgment on non-hegemonic art forms that belittles them as insufficiently liberal, which ignores the context of resistance and openness that created hip-hop. It is a good thing that hip-hop exists outside the debate space because we can do things like play things on the radio and have discussions about hip-hop acts that occur outside of things like speech time limits and the fact that we absolutely have to oppose you. The fact that you've reduced hip-hop to happen in the debate space as a way to solve an advocacy is a reason as to why you are engaging with hip-hop can never be authentic. The fourth link is that you perform lyrics from Brooke Candy, who is a wealthy white woman and a daughter of the CEO at Hustler, who refers to herself as a hood rat. This is a great example of the way in which you are appropriating. Candy's performances commodify black stereotypes to make a point about her affiliation as a white woman. Her ownership of a term used to oppress and make primitive black bodies uniquely ignores racial context. Hood rat is something that is uniquely tied to the discourse that you are trying to appropriate. The impacts. The first is the eating of the other. This is Bell Hooks' term for the process by which appropriation works in mass culture. You deploy art forms without contextualizing them historically and consume them to your own ends. This creates a consumer cannibalism that displaces the other and denies the significance of the other's history. Eradicating indifference perpetuates white hegemony and reifies what you critique. It indicates that if you do not solve, even if you try to solve for some oppression, you will always be creating other oppression that is necessarily worse and that turns the entirety solvency of your advocacy because you have appropriated discourse that is not the one that you need. The second impact is failing to recognize privilege, crowds out discussions. Look to the fact that at the Whitman walkout, there was zero discussion of LGBTQ issues, even though that was what started the discussion. In a world where you commodify and reappropriate another different type of discussion in order to make your point, you automatically silence the discussion that was supposed to have been taking place in the first place. This is a reason as to why you can never solve, and it is an impact that independently outweighs the affirmative. Look to the fact that forums don't focus on, forums that don't focus on race or, forums that do not focus on things like race or ableism become obsessed with other oppressions. You have necessarily masked all the other things that we can talk about in a debate by continuing a narrative that has begun unbroken from the start of this year and appropriating a narrative that we think deserves more discussion. The alternative. Vote negative to embrace the radical reconceptualization of the feminine in debates from within one's own social location. Vote negative to embrace the radical reconceptualization of the feminine in debates from within one's own social location. Solvency. The first argument is that social context solves. We do not tell you how to approach your liberation, just that you should not commodify other struggles in order to approach that liberation. The alternative solves back for 100% of the offensive case without appropriating a struggle that has, without appropriating a struggle that would necessarily turn the independent solvency case. Anything else on the alternative?
Can you explain to me what this means? I don't know who does this or how.
We all can do it. The alternative just means that we recognize our own privilege and the fact that we are not related to the struggle of hip-hop artists in the way that you claim the affirmative while undertaking the interrogation that you assert the affirmative is.
Do you fiat that everyone's doing this? That everyone does this investigation?
This is our only insofar as your advocacy fiats like an interrogation. The second disadvantage is language. The first argument is that your language, not a personal attachment, but your language empirically constitutes harassment according to the NPTE definition of language that occurs around, i.e. language that makes a competition unduly difficult or the presence in a round unduly difficult for those who are present in it. Or it is that people in this round ask for all the arguments you are making on case about the fact that we can't lead. This is turned back against you because all the presence of all the people in this round who are unduly affected by not only your harsh language but your sexualization of the female body are forced to remain here and to listen to all of it. You have, congratulations, you have created a captive audience. You have not wanted that audience to respond in any positive way to your sexualization of the female body or your articulation of lyrics that can actually be construed as offensive. This makes terminal no solvency for no alternative. The second argument is that language turns your advocacy. The commodification of the female body that you create simply reifies the problems you attempt to discuss. You have not won any reason as to why using the specific lyrics you isolate gives you any victory over the commodification of the female body in the lyrics. You have simply read words written by other people and asserted that you reading them makes it better. The second argument is that sexualized language crowds out people who do not identify with the exact way in which you construe the female body, i.e. people who are asexual or have an entirely different relationship to the female body, i.e. one that is not massively sexualized by female rappers who have to compete in the game. This is a reason as to why the discussion of hip-hop outside the round is always better, and also a reason as to why understanding our own privilege and the fact that we may not have sexual orientations exactly as the affirmative says we does will solve that for all of your offense. The last argument is conservative backlash. This is uniquely a problem with the hip-hop arena where conservatives do things like censor language in order to crowd out the discourse that you are creating. In the world where you have turned to the same language that has created so many problems for hip-hop in the past, you will always run into roadblocks where people will censor your language and shut you down. This is a reason as to why not engaging in problematic discourse in the affirmative is the only way to solve it. The impact: total takeout of solvency for the affirmative, no ability to form a coalition, the affirmative move. Now the affirmative problem. Just a few arguments. You list Gray as an example of male-dominated hip-hop. Yes, we agree. You have chosen lyrics that are degrading to women as per the second disadvantage. You have made no attempt to articulate as to why the simple fact that women are saying the lyrics that you say they are makes them any more empowered than the fact that Dre is saying lyrics about women. We would love to list a litany of examples of female rappers like Lil Pimp who continue to commodify the female body in ways that is equally problematic simply because they are wrapped up in the same discourse that you isolate. There is no reason that your advocacy in this round turns these people's lyrics into something that they are inherently are not. You also say that we need to listen. We've also turned this argument as per the disadvantage that keeping us as a captive audience is a bad thing, and that when you tie your speech act to the fact that everyone has to stay, you are creating things that are problematic and killing the ability for coalitions. Discussion elsewhere outside the round, or discussion that acknowledges our own privilege, first allows us to overcome this. You you talk about lyrics melting in our mouth. Argument is that radio and the dissemination of rap is not the same thing as the debate space. Outside the debate space, we are safe from the ability to have to oppose each other. We are safe from our ability to have to engage in societal discourse is problematic. You are talking about reasons as to why the pushies should be dominant. Argument is that only in the debate space are we safe from the fact that we have to constantly talk about our dick size in order to engage in being men. Argument is that these problems also permeate the debate space thoroughly, and by removing ourselves from that space, we can engage in more productive discussions that avoid the social harms that you are trying to solve for your advocacy. Yeah, you say that this has evolved into a movement similar to the debate space. No, we have one often suggesting the debate space is unique because it is tabula rasa, it is egalitarian, and we avoid all the problems associated with the social movements of rap, and that only our advocacy gets around this. You say that, what's this last one? You talk about appropriation. Only a risk that you link to all of your impacts of appropriation because you've chosen an advocacy that is equally appropriate. Anything else? That's where I am. We solve that for all the impacts of the case 100%. Only a risk that starting the discussion from a point that immediately acknowledges our own privilege first can solve better.
What is this discussion? You don't say anything about the discussion.
Well, the alternative functions in the same way as the point. I'm done with it.
So minutes. As an overview, this is what debate is supposed to be about. Kay and I sat around before nationals to talk about what debate means to us. This is what we came up with. This is what it means to be a woman in this community. This is how we identify. After 4 years of debate, this is how we function within this space, and I think it's probably pretty key that we get to use this space to talk about what it has meant to us and how we have interacted with it within the last 4 years. So that's what we did on their criticism arguments. First argument is they're just wrong about what we're doing for hip-hop, and saying that hip-hop is only for a certain type of community is probably a pretty bad thing. There are a couple arguments for this. The first argument is we transform the relations beyond just a social location. We tell you that hip-hop has been used for a bunch of different things. The first argument is in Latin America, it was used for resistance movements and different types of protests, but also the MIA and the Tamils use it as a different form of liberation. The next argument is that we say that we can use hip-hop for overlapping beyond social geography and social location. Our affirmative is that resistance that we say that hip-hop does have the ability to just to transcend, which is actually in resistance to your dominant ideology. The second argument is we do the same thing to but we're telling that hip-hop is rhythmic or poetry, which means it's a description of the world around us. We did one example, we just put it to a beat, probably not a reason that this is uniquely bad. The second argument is we read an affirmative, which is just the same as we would do, we just do it better. The third argument is there's no cultural appreciation that happens in the South. We tell you that this is a safe place and we should have the ability to indict. We say that we start a movement. This is good to start a movement. Look at the fact that jazz was actually introduced in black culture and that they transformed it. I mean, you cannot say that music belongs to one certain community because that's not the way music works. It is transformed over multiple different types of communities. Also, we say that we use hip-hop as a safe space, and you indict, which is probably a link to the entirety of our criticism. Also, we tell you that hip-hop is politics. We say that because we interrogate what is jazz, what is gender, and what this means, what this means, and what race means, that's the hip-hop is politics. But we also tell you that Killer Mike used this to interrogate the fact that African Americans were sentenced longer, probably that hip-hop is politics, and has the ability to change. And our method interrogates this. Also, you're linked to make the first argument is you make the argument that we assume this is white. The first argument is we use white rappers and black rappers, but the second argument is we don't take any of our voices. We use our own voices and are commodifying any type of story in order to win the battle. The third argument is not unique to this. That's in the South Pole. I also like the argument that this is not an answer to any of our arguments. We don't, actually, I don't need that one. The second argument is they always say that we only choose to rap about women. That is our point. We say that we get to use this hip-hop to further our movement. We get to use it and decide how we relate to it because that it makes it the same in any debate space. You say that this belittles any liberal movement and totally denies oppression. No, we say this is useful for liberation in whatever way. We also say that Brooke Candy's just general appropriation. We tell you that Brooke Candy's actually become useful in the hip-hop feminist movement. She's highlighted that people actually started the hip-hop feminist movement. People like Joan Morgan said that people like Brooke Candy were actually influential in the hip-hop feminist movement. But also, the next argument is the link term. We see the challenging systematic oppression in the deconstruction of white. That this is the way to overcome oppression. But the next term is our immediately open space for interrogation of whiteness and for interrogation of other forms of oppression. The next argument is linked to hip-hop as a method has always allowed individuals to speak out about the oppression and how the oppression impacts them and how what they've experienced in their lives. The next argument is linked to the is a critical rupture of power hierarchy and the status quo essentially to act and power dynamics that exist and we dominate or we challenge the dominant power of paradigm. This is the only way to make visible the impact that impact us as individuals in our daily lives, which solves all the proximity arguments. The sixth argument is all of the ways that this argument is surprising or shocking. You show how entrenched in patriarchy and whiteness that you are in the status quo. The fact that it's not normal. The next argument is linked to that women's rights and social racial struggles are best solved together hand in hand. There are a couple words for this. The first argument is overloaded malcultural. Feminism and racial struggles go hand in hand. Should be addressed at the same time. Also, Joan Morgan, who adopted hip-hop feminism, said that hip-hop should be a place used to address multiple things, that it should be used for intersectionality, that it should be used to confront race and gender and identity and class. At the same time, Angela Davis also said this, that without an intersectionality, that we all just become crabs in a bucket. The argument is without hip-hop, what else do we have? You say we can't use the debate space. You say we can't use hip-hop. What do you want us to do that? It's a huge link to our criticism. The next argument is to reject whiteness, we must include feminism or patriarchy, because without including feminism, you just have patriarchy without whiteness. Or that argument is that we create a critical movement without female. If you have a critical movement without females, it just becomes Stalinism, where you say that your girly issues aren't important, so we don't have to listen to you. You want anything else? Cool. Means that we're the only way to solve backward discussions with other communities on your alternatives proper. We say do both. We have the ability to do the entirety of the affirmative, but also do this. But also we tell you your affirmative is still properly appropriation of our voices. You say this is not a unique space where we get to use our voices. We should all think about it rather than us being able to speak. Also,
the case. Okay.
So that's language, case, and then appropriation.
Yeah.
Appropriation fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
See what I'm right? Cool. All of this said, not going for your correct back, which is probably inevitable, and also probably correct that violence and this not you not made a reciprocal argument this way, appropriation is inevitable, and what I suppose are the criticism go to the case now. You see, you identify with the lyrics. We will interrogate whether this is problematic along the criticism. It's not that you choose to listen to this music. It's instead, the argument is that the way in which you brought these lyrics into the realm without acknowledging their historical context within which they have come to this space is the reason why this is uniquely problematic. Moreover, we are not critics critiquing you for trying to solve for every single bit of language. We're instead saying that the important thing here is that there are still problematic aspects of the feminist hip-hop movement. Your movement is not perfect, and that is very, very important here, because the negative versus the intersectional one says that we should be beginning from our own social location and then moving out from that point. You see, the debate allows you to go further. We say that debate's important to everyone. That's probably a reason why everyone should be able to access this space equally, and more of a reason why appropriation in this space is problematic. This space is so critical that you were to dump on here. Either appropriation in this space is uniquely problematic and worse than any other form of appropriation, or the space is uniquely not key, and the out-of-round arguments things making will solve back against this. This is the thesis of the negative strategy. You see, we're forced to listen to you. We see, we are obviously still going to listen to you when you're brilliant arguments outside of the debate space. We're your friends. We want to engage with us. We want this discussion more. The radio arguments are going to extend these arguments with the way in which radio. I heard this on the radio. We can have a discussion about it. Why not being limited by the speech time, not being forced to negate you. Obviously, in this instance, we are forced to negate you, and we say that's fairly problematic. Now, extend the term argument Nick makes. He said that debate is inherently a hypermasculine, is a safe space for us, because outside of debate, we have to be inherently hypermasculine. This argument is important because, one, it means that debate is a safe space for us, too, and that means it's something that should be accessible for everyone. And also, it means that hypermasculinity is something that hurts not just women, but all people. We say that an intersectional approach of the alternative will be able to solve back against this. You say discomfort is, and unless it's from these things, we have already said that there's discomfort is probably that. Only other arguments we need are... the other thing is that on the impacts, one, the MD said, any impacts hold them to a low threshold, trying to weigh their impacts against the case, against the K, and two, Nick's argument is very clear that they should start by acknowledging the social location for which they come, and then progressing from there. The K, beginning with the also. Bummer for you when the permutation is just do both, and the alternative text says to reject the is to reject, or we said this is important at the point where the actually, can I get the alternative text from you all? Sorry. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Alright. Scratch the first argument. The first disadvantage is that instead of being within one's social location, something that you have to begin with, and you're absolutely saying that the alternative is a starting point, and you did not start at the same point as we said there's an inherent incompatibility. The next thing is cognitive distance. We say that when we indicate the first methodology, and you continue to vote for the inferred, this means that you continue to believe that there is nothing problematic with not again for one's social location. We went any risk of being linked to the informative. You were going to be buying that this disadvantage, the permutation, the next disadvantage permutation is fundamental. So this flows a negative, non-affirmative. See that the argument that we're going for here is not that every other person will just think about their own self, but instead of the ways that the text the alternative is reconceptualize the feminine debate within one's own social location. We are doing the affirmative, but then saying we should begin from within our social location. This includes Nick and I as men in debate. This also includes everyone in this room beginning from wherever their gender identity they bring them, or their other social location aspects they bring them from. We said this is unique and this is the best way of solving this. You said we still appropriate voices. That's not no one else on this question. The performance that agrees at the beginning of this is not a reason why we should lose this debate. In fact, we are very clear on the question that it's not the fact that you can never ever bring these arguments into debate, but instead the ways in which the ways in which you have brought this argument into debate doesn't acknowledge the social context which occurs. I like you to want to know. You say you should see with your methodology. Yes, we're reading criticism of your methodology. We're not saying except alternative solving number one. We don't tell you how to approach liberating your femininity. We think it's important that anyone is able to do that on their own terms. The argument is solely that the way in which you have done so in this page ignores a historical context and that is problematic. Anti alternative comes up forgetting not to the text alternatives to embrace the radical reconceptualization since the ballot is crucial. The ballot is crucial for you, space in the ballot is crucial for reconceptualization, and using your chosen to repair your question, answer the ballot. What's your question?
Yeah, so how is your performance at the top different from the performance of the rap within the case?
Yeah, first is that our form of talk uniquely indicts the ways in which black culture has been appropriated by white cultures, and the second argument is that it's different as far as we are not using we're not deploying this in a like in independent of social context. The topic. All right. The second link is devastating. They don't answer. It's pretty crucial. The first argument we're saying is that they are only use female voices, which we say is something you can certainly do, but you need to acknowledge the ways in which there is a problematic aspect to this, and you have not acknowledged the ways in which this comes from a very privileged position, where the ways in which hip-hop has originated came from a history of oppression and a history of resistance. We say the ways in which you only deploy hip-hop when it is used for you is the ultimate act of quantification, when you use it to win a debate round, when you use it to say the affirmative should get 3 ballots in this debate, that's unique act of appropriation. The third link. Send it now. This is the conceded one that they don't answer. There's not a word written on this argument in the MT. There's a lot of ink here, but this argument was cool conceded. The argument is that you equate hip-hop and the debate space. You say the equation of these two spaces means that hip-hop is reduced to just something that is similar to the debate space. This ignores the oppression that's occurring with that motivates hip-hop to occur in the first place, and in turn guarantees that there's no possibility for hip-hop to be considered a unique art form. The top of the top of the arguments. Okay. You say hip-hop allows you to transition beyond your social location. You see that we hear disadvantages in that argument. We say that the transition occurs beyond your social location should still occur from within the lens of acknowledging the social location for which you began. We say that you didn't do that. Those are the two link arguments you can see. We say that even if you're using it for resistance, that's something that you can make the choice to do. You should just ignore the social location you come from in the first place. You say hip-hop is beyond social location, not incorrect. You read it, you read it in reading arguments that tell you that hip-hop is tied to social location and is rooted in these arguments. You say that you are just reading rhythm art, poetry, and doing it for to a being. That's something you can certainly choose. You should just acknowledge that this is an appropriate action and engage with that appropriation. You have not done so. You say no one appreciates hip-hop now, incorrectly. I don't like hip-hop, and you also say that. Okay. Let's look at the jazz argument. You say we introduced people to jazz and they took it on their own. You say this is uniquely problematic conceptualization of the other. It says that we can give them things and then the other will flourish on its own as if we have no ability to engage with or know the other. We say this is uniquely problematic advocacy for methodology that probably turns the entire case negatively. Using the hip-hop as a safe space and we indict this. We say that's not correct. We say that we've never indicted hip-hop. We just say that there are problematic ways in which you engage with this methodology. The other arguments about the indictments of hip-hop are not indictments of hip-hop. Charge suggestions on the ways in which you're right, rather disappointed this theory, you defended it. We said that's not a reason to reject us now. So you said hip-hop is political. We say it certainly is. We should be given your social location when using it. You say that and the last word we need to pull into page is the Brocandy argument. Brocandy is uniquely problematic because of the appropriation of the term political. This is used to animalize African American individuals in the United States, and we said this is problematic. You make two arguments this level that allows you to challenge oppression, not incorrectly. The link arguments are pretty clear in the ways in which even if it does challenge your oppression, it ratifies other oppressions. The next argument, you say this terrorist whiteness, we say there is not a warrant for this argument, you should look for a warrant for the there is something. Is it one more? We say even if it does some hierarchies, you ratify other hierarchies. These are the criticism. We say that shock spice is not responsible for this question. You say that women and racial rights can be resolved the same way. Intersectionality is not what you're accomplishing in this question. The alternative captures the entirety of your intersectionality solvency arguments because it says that we can begin from our own social location and reach out from that. This is the most ethical approach because it begins with the compassion to the other. The impacts are clear. The first is that you eat the other, you don't contextualize that, and then that turns case. The second thing, you recognize the ways in which you crowd out other discourses.
where there should not be one. Extending argument that tactics for negative approach begins from our own socialization and an interrogation privilege, and then co-opts the affirmative advocacy. This is always desperately assault because it allows us to acknowledge our privilege first and prevents things like appropriation, because we realize that this discourse does not apply to us. Your appropriation is uniquely problematic. Extend the double line. Either your appropriation is uniquely problematic because it's happening in the debate space, or that the debate space doesn't matter and discussions out around solve all of this. Last argument is that out around is particularly best for hip-hop. You are willing to radio argument here as to why we have to be hyper-masculine to engage in other multiple problematic social structures outside of debate. This is the only safe space for us to discuss it, which is why it's uniquely keeping do not be appropriate. Permutation will solve 100% of the offensive. Or sorry, the alternative will solve 100% of the offensive. Here is that's why I hate permutation. The first argument is that it is fundamentally incompatible. You can see the argument that beginning from the socialization in order to perform an interrogation necessarily means that we cannot begin in one place and begin in another at the same time. The alternative and the affirmative are fundamentally incompatible. The second argument is cognitive dissonance. A great example of this is doing things like creating ironic racist jokes. When you assume the identity of someone else or critique it, i.e. be appropriate, you lose your own social location and become lost in the identity of someone else. When I'm role-playing as a racist in order to make a joke, I become that racist because I forgot my own identity and I'm neglecting to interrogate myself. This is a reason why cognitive dissonance you can't solve. Last argument is footnoting. This argument flows our way. You make the argument the alternative might be footnoted because it focuses on ourselves. The argument is that in the world of permutation, if we try and do other things other than ourselves, we are unable to focus on the self. This is the reason why the alternative resolves 100% of the offense, but permutation would not. Two other arguments as to why the alternative solves. The first argument is the alternative does not modify but resolves 100% of the rest of the offense. Second argument, you have considered radical conceptualization, which is what the affirmative does. Yes, you were right that hip-hop is about a history of oppression. It is unfortunately about a history of oppression of a certain race of people. It is not about the history of oppression of Elim McKay. You have equated hip-hop with debate-based absolutely problematic. You are also going beyond your socialization because you are, before interrogating privilege is always a bad thing. All of your arguments as to how hip-hop can become uniquely transformative are predicated on the idea that we can later go on to make hip-hop a space that can open up to other people. This is the defense you are using to answer the Brookhaven argument. This is not fundamentally responsive to the thesis that the lyrics that you chose in this round because you identify with them are appropriated prior to the fact that hip-hop could expand into a community that would then fall back to that appropriation. You are putting the cart before the horse. Extend the Brookhaven, like the Brookhaven also uses lyrics like referring to herself as a hood rat, which is uniquely appropriate term because that was used to refer to black communities exclusively as an issue of a class applying to black people. Even if you have not used the lyrics that appropriate that word, you are uniquely engaging with a discourse that means that you will not ever be able to solve. Grip these arguments. They will fall into one of two categories. Either they will be offensively a shocking argument, which does not matter. You can see that shocking it is inevitable and everyone is reading these arguments. Or they will fall into the argument that hip-hop will create intersectionality. This is already answered above. Moreover, you will not be able to create intersectionality in a world where you can see both far impacts of the energy versus the eating of the other. In a world where you do this appropriating works in appropriation of mass culture, you have to play forms without contextualizing it historically. You have only talked about the potential future of the hip-hop movement, not about where it got its roots, particularly not about where it got its roots with female rappers. You have listed quotes only of people who say that it has potential, not the fact that it has a past. We've also failed to recognize privilege. This trials out discussions are, you have considered our example of the Whitman tournament where the discussion was completely shifted to another issue by the opening of a forum that masked the entirety of the discussion of privilege. Unless you start from the locus of privilege as an individual, you have no capacity to solve this. The alternative results 100% there.
Okay. The order is going to be the solvency page. Sorry, the affirmative solvency page, the alternative, and then the impact page, and then it's going to be solvency page. All flags. Yeah, after impact and solvency page again, that's the line by line on a couple of their responses.
Is that, sorry, your impact page?
Yes.
Okay, so your solvency are all group.
I definitely know this. I know.
So it's solvency.
I'm sorry, it is solvency, then it is the alternative on the appropriation criticism, and then it is the arguments on the appropriation criticism, which I have flowed straight down. And then it's the impact page of the affirmative case, and then just solvency again. Sorry, for the lack of English. When I walk into a debate round, I will on average get 0.2 speaker points less than the male that I am debating. This is not the problem, this is the symptom of the problem. There are underlying issues that lead to these speaker point differentials. They are represented in all of the statistics that we give you out of the 1AC. I want you to look specifically to the solvency page now. The solvency of the 1AC is a narrative. What happens is that we tell you about our experiences or our perspectives on what is going on. That is the articulation. What we tell you is that on the solvency page, that the designated speech times, the fact that you have to listen, that the critics have to listen to these speeches is uniquely important because people have to listen. That is the significance of it. It means that what has happened is that we get messages from people who watch it and it meant something to them. It means that I have had conversations with female debaters who are 18 years old and it meant something to them. It means that I have bonded with female judges who I was intimidated for 4 years because we had the exact same experience. That is the solvency of the affirmative. That is clear from the get-go. I want you to know now to the alternative of the appropriation. The alternative acts through field. Are you kidding? You think that the alternative solves my narrative? That probably doesn't fix the issues that we are isolating within the 1AC. The first argument I want you to look to is why the ballot is uniquely key and why this is uniquely important. Emily says that the alternative is always going to be an appropriation of voices. The argument always becomes footnoted and it's a method people choose. The uniquely debate space is key as to the speaker point differential that we get. What happens in the world of the alternative? Nothing. We walk out and this debate loses. The new argument out of the outlaw is that the ballot is not actually key. I have a couple of responses to this. The first one, that this argument has to actually win within the competitive debate space for people to actually give a damn about it. Because when it succeeds on the national debate circuit, that is uniquely important to people actually giving a damn about it. The second one is that if people win, that means that people prepare for it. The reason Whitman spent all last night writing answers to that probably forced them to self-reflect about maybe some issues or some things that they needed to talk about. The third argument is that most importantly, if this argument loses, that is terrible. Because it signals that this argument doesn't have a place in the debate community, that women don't have a space in the debate community that is not uniquely important. That is why the 1AC has to win. That is why the alternative will never solve.
Sorry. The previous three arguments are new. There's no argument in the MO that the ballot's on.
You don't make any arguments with regards to the ballot not being key. You make that out of the outlaw. The Martin First can't have to respond to that. Moreover, these are all actually exceptions out of the 1AC. But
I think they should reply to me.
Consideration of charge. Okay. We're on the appropriation criticism. The first thing that they say is that they link only using the feminine voice is problematic. It's a history repression. I have a couple of responses to this. The first thing that I want you to send across Emily's 11 argument that she says that it's useful for the hip-hop feminist movement. Joe Morgan made a quote about how this is key. Using the hip-hop feminist movement is uniquely important to intersectionality. The next argument I want you to extend across is Emily's 14th argument, where she says the critical rupture, Emily's 15th argument, where she says that Audre Lorde and Bell Hooks specifically talk about how racism and feminism have to work together. The next argument that Audre Lorde says that hip-hop specifically should be used for intersectionality. That's probably an indication that we're able to solve back to that. The next argument I want you to extend across is the conceded argument that us opening up this space and saying that this argument gets to be competitive always creates a momentum for other arguments to get momentum. That means that we always get long-term solvency because you get to make the arguments that you want. Because when an 18-year-old hears that this argument is important, then they write about the exact same oppression that they have faced, and people start listening. That always solves back the entirety of their articulations. The next thing I want you to look to is the number 11 and 12 terms that Emily says that the critical rupture of power dynamics is uniquely important because they have visible impact and surprising and shocking is always uniquely good because you will talk about this after you walk out of this round. That is unique solvency. The next argument I want you to look to is the fact that if we can't use hip-hop because that belongs to people of color, if we can't use the debate space because that belongs to men, what the hell do we use? Where do we get to talk about our voices? When do we get to say that we are sexually assaulted when we go to debate parties and we get 0.2 speaker points less than you? What does the woman have? Tumblr? Latte art? That's what you designed us to, and I swear that doesn't have any solvency. Go to the next page. No, I want the solvency page, sorry. The solvency page, line by line. They try and create a double bind when they say that either appropriation is bad or the space is not key. I already